You're listening to KNVBC, Revival Radio, broadcasting from Santa Clara, California. The time is 7 o'clock.
American Family News, almost a Q. President Biden on Thursday announced sweeping COVID vaccine rules, mandating all federal workers receive the shot, and ordering all companies with more than 100 workers also to make the COVID vaccine mandatory. As many as 100 million Americans are said to be affected by the requirements. But South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem says it's not going to happen in her state.
As for South Dakota, I'll fight to protect my people and to defend their freedoms. In South Dakota, we're going to be free, and we're going to make sure that we don't overstep our authority. So we will take action. My legal team is already working, and we will defend and protect our people from this unlawful mandate.
During a campaign event for the California gubernatorial recall election, Republican challenger Larry Elder was attacked in Southern California. While touring a homeless encampment in Los Angeles, a white woman wearing a gorilla mask threw an egg at Elder. He joined Tucker Carlson tonight to discuss the reaction this has gotten from Governor Gavin Newsom.
The governor has not put out a statement about this white woman, apparently a white woman wearing a gorilla mask, threw an egg at me. I don't expect that. As
Louisiana begins to recover from the devastation of Hurricane Ida, the number of deaths reported has risen to 26. Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards speaking Thursday about the deaths.
We reported 11 additional storm-related deaths, all of which came from Orleans Parish. Obviously, any loss of life is tragic and sad, and when you see 11 at one time, it is especially so.
A legal scholar says the state of Texas gets the election reform right, while the mainstream media gets it wrong.
Democrats and the left-wing media have been demonizing the Texas legislature's election reform package known as SB 1, which is designed to protect voters by fixing vulnerabilities in the registration and election system. The left pulled out their usual playbook, claiming the new law is, quote, restrictive. Hans von Spakovsky is senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation and manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative.
We're not just concerned with the presidential election. We should be concerned with every single election, from the local town council all the way to the statewide races like the governor. And if there's an ability to commit fraud, folks, unfortunately, are going to take advantage of that. And Texas has had a huge number of prosecutions of individuals committing election fraud in the past few years, and they need to put in remedies to prevent that from happening.
Von Spakovsky believes there is only one possible motive the Democrats have for opposing voter integrity.
What possible reason is there for Democrats to be against that unless they want aliens to be able to register, vote, and get away with it? There's no other reason to oppose it.
Von Spakovsky says no member of the public with any common sense would think this voter ID requirement or any of the other provisions in the bill are restrictive or will prevent an eligible person from voting. But then, this is one thing that the media and many of the bill's opponents seem to lack: common sense. I'm Chad Groening.
A white Pennsylvania professor thinks there's merit in the suggestion that white people should commit suicide to atone for racism.
Duquesne University professor Derek Hook based his remarks on quotes from South African philosophy professor Triblanche Delporte. Fox News reports the Catholic school claims Hook was misquoted. Van Gramley of the American Family Association of Pennsylvania disagrees.
He may be quoting a South African philosophy professor, but I believe if any professor shows something on a slide, then unless he announces it in front of the class, then he supports what that slide says.
Gramley cautions parents not to let their guard down just because their student is going to a Protestant or Catholic school.
Don't assume that it really adheres to those teachings, because this is a perfect example here with Duquesne and their willingness to defend a professor who has suggested that white students should commit self-murder.
Fox reports the video of Hook's presentation has been viewed by hundreds of thousands on Twitter, garnering largely negative comments. I'm Bob Kellogg.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
What has happened to a nation that used to fear the Lord, to a people whose foundation was built upon God's word? We've allowed this should boldly stand and say, God's word will stand against the raging tide of those who criticize and work their evil plans. God's word will stand against the gates of hell with power to prevail in the hearts of man. God's word will stand. They can take it from the courthouse walls, remove it from the schools, teach our children that we're animals, speak against the golden rule, try and hide our Christian heritage from the public eye, but they'll never overcome God's word no matter how they try. God's word will stand against the raging tide of those who criticize and work their evil plans. God's word will stand against the gates of hell with power to prevail in the hearts of man. God's word will stand. It is forever settled to evermore endure. It's the only way a sinner's heart could ever